Hello everyone, today is June 6th, 2022 and you are welcome to the 6th edition of Nigeria Today. Enoch, please read the news for today.
Thank you, Becky. Radio Free Europe reports that EU Justice Commissioner Didier Reyna has vowed that war crimes in Ukraine will be criminally prosecuted and that atrocities committed during the Russian invasion will not go unpunished.
In our previous video, we talked about COVID-19, world population crisis, industrialization development in Nigeria. Each is a powerful impact not only on the economy of Nigeria, but also on the world's economy. Today, we will look at the war between Russia and Ukraine and how it has affected the world.
How is the current state of the war?
On March 23rd, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin demanded that the European countries must pay for all natural gas imports in rubles instead of the US dollar or the euro. The European Union imports 40% of its natural gas requirements. Putin's demand that unfriendly countries henceforth pay for Russian gas in rubles has had several immediate effects, with the European given 1 week to switch to paying in the Russian currency. It has driven up the price of natural gas. The ruble has strengthened against the US dollar since the announcement from 107 rupee to 99 rupee. And if European nations accede to dollar's term, the demand for rupee will increase and accordingly further strengthen the currency value in the foreign exchange markets. Europe depends heavily on Russian gas for heating and power generation. Putin's message was clear: if you want our gas, buy our currency. The dynamic is most visible in Russia's currency, which has regained some of the value it lost after the sanction first hit. The ruble against the US dollar, but has since partially rebounded to a rate about 30% below its level. According to Russian Central Bank, that's still a big hit, and there are many others. Russia drew up a list of unfriendly countries which corresponds to those that impose sanctions. The list of the countries include the United States, European Union member states, Britain, Japan, Canada, Norway, Singapore, South Korea, Switzerland, and Ukraine.
What is the issue between Russia and Ukraine?
The Russo-Ukrainian War is an ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. It began in February 2014 following the Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity and initially focused on the status of Crimea and the Donbass, internationally recognized as part of Ukraine.
How did the war start?
In 2021, Russia started a large-scale military build-up near the border with eastern Ukraine, generating great concern in Ukraine, Europe, and across the world. On 21st February 2022, after weeks of extreme tension, President Vladimir Putin decided to recognize the non-government controlled areas of the Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast administrative region in Ukraine as independent entity and to send Russian troops into those areas. A full-scale invasion of the Ukrainian mainland escalated tension between the two countries on 24th February 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine, marking a steep escalation of the Russo-Ukrainian War, which had begun in 2014. In a major escalation of the conflict on 24th February 2022, Russia launched across a broad front, causing Ukraine to sever all former diplomatic ties with Russia. Throughout 2021 and 2022, a Russian military built up on the border of Ukraine and strained their bilateral relation. Ukraine broke diplomatic relations with Moscow in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Streets bearing the names of Russian figures and monuments symbolizing Russia and Ukraine friendship were removed from various locations across Ukraine. The invasion has caused Europe's fastest growing refugee crisis since World War II, with more than 6.4 million Ukrainians fleeing the country and a third of the population displaced. More than 6.4 million refugees have since left Ukraine, while an estimated 7.7 million people have been displaced within the country by 21st April. Approximately 1/4 of the country's total population has left their homes in Ukraine by 20th March.
America and Europe, who is to blame?
U.S. assistance to Ukraine is targeted to promote political and economic reform and address urgent humanitarian needs. The U.S. has consistently encouraged Ukraine's transition to a democratic society with a prosperous market-based economy. The United States reaffirmed its unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its international recognized borders, extending to its territorial waters. The U.S.-Ukraine relationship serves as a cornerstone for security, democracy, and human rights in Ukraine and the border region. The EU strongly condemns Putin's decision to recognize the non-government controlled areas of Donetsk and Luhansk and Russia's unprovoked and unjustified military aggression against Ukraine. It also condemns Belarus' involvement in Russian military aggression. Since February 2022, the European Council and the Council of the European Union have been meeting regularly to discuss the situation in Ukraine from different perspectives. EU leaders demanded on several occasions that Russia immediately cease its military actions, unconditionally withdraw all forces and military equipment from Ukraine, and fully respect Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence. The EU has shown unity and strength and has provided Ukraine with coordinated humanitarian, political, financial, and material support.
America has waged more than one war. In my mind, like Afghanistan, Iran-Iraq war. What do you think about it, Becky?
The war in Afghanistan was a conflict that took place from 2001 to 2021 in the South Central Asian country. It began when the United States and its allies had toppled the rule. The war ended with the Taliban regaining power after a nearly 20-year-long against Allied, and it was surpassing the 1995 to 1975 by approximately 5 months. The Iran-Iraq War was an armed conflict between Iran and Iraq lasting from September 22, 1980, when Iraq invaded Iran, to August 1988. The war followed a long history of borders disputes and was motivated by fears that the Iranian Revolution in 1979 will inspire insurgency among Iraq's long-suppressed Shia majority, as well as Iraq's desire to replace Iran as the dominant Persian Gulf state.
In what aspect did the United States gain from the war?
First, the crisis has greatly increased the U.S. natural gas exports to Europe, which used to purchase more than 40% of its gas from Russia. Secondly, the crisis will strengthen the U.S. dollar and attract global capital flows. All the geopolitical crises the U.S. has created or actively instigated over the past 2 decades without exception have strengthened its currency in the wake of the Russian-Ukraine conflict. The value of the dollar will be boosted, making the U.S. financial sanctuary since Europe is no longer safe. Thirdly, the crisis has disrupted bilateral trade between Russia and EU, Russia's largest trading partner. as EU members join to sanction Russia and some Russian banks are excluded from the SWIFT system, bilateral trade will shrink significantly, which is exactly what the US needs. Moreover, this crisis could also hugely benefit the Americans' military-industrial complex.
So what is the impact of the war on the world? Economy, political.
Russian invasion of Ukraine has caused the greatest humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. Thousands of lives have been lost, and millions of livelihoods have been disrupted through displacement, loss of home, and loss of incomes. So many others are shocked by the unfolding humanitarian tragedy and the consequence of its brutal war. In addition to the pain and suffering experienced by those inside Ukraine, there are already more than 3 million people seeking refuge in neighboring nations, with the similar numbers displaced within Ukraine as in other major conflicts and refugee crises. The impact of the war in Ukraine are being felt not only regionally but around the world because of the region's significant contribution to food and energy supplies. Concerning food, there are production and export challenges. These are already associated with the reduced availability and price rise. As in any conflict, uncertainty is high. It is unclear how the military situation, the political process, and the countermeasures around the world will play out in either the shorter or the longer term. However, it is already certain that as a consequence of the economic impacts of the crisis on energy and food markets, disruption will affect many in Europe and beyond. The war in Ukraine in all its dimensions is producing alarming cascading effects on the world economy already battered by COVID-19 and climate change, with particularly dramatic impact on developing countries due to the war, which is severely disrupting already tight food, energy, and financial markets. The reverberating effects of Putin's assault on Ukraine are already being felt across the globe, rising concern about what Russia's propensity for aggression will be going forward. War in Ukraine is causing food and fuel crisis. Smaller supplies and higher food price mean that the world's poor could be forced to do without, said WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Sharply rising commodity prices have been the most immediate economic impact of the Ukraine conflict. Similarly, crude oil prices have increased by around 60%, and gas and fertilizer prices have more than doubled.
What impact does the war has on Nigeria?
The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has worsened the economic situation globally and in Nigeria, and other countries must be prepared as things may get worse. This was stated by Nigerian Vice President in Ebonyi State. Mr. Osibajo said Nigeria's economy is reeling from the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian-Ukraine war. While calling for synergy among all tiers of government to tackle the challenges, he warned Nigerians to brace themselves for what could be a tougher economic situation. The need for synergy among all tiers of government at this critical time, especially as we continue to face the challenges of the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is now compounded by the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, has already led to prices and supply shock, especially in food. Nigeria imports about 50% of its wheat from Russia and Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has also led to increase in the prices of several commodities, including oil. Although Nigeria is a net exporter of crude, a lack of local refining means it exports most of its refined petroleum products like petrol and kerosene, whose prices have all increased, is affecting Nigeria's economy and its people. The crisis would affect African economy and also threaten the global economy. Russia's invasion of Ukraine had led to a sharp rise in global oil prices, amounting to almost $100 per barrel and counting if the tension deepens.
According to some reports, China is Russia's steel alliance. So what is China's attitude towards the war?
Recently, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said China's friendship with Russia was solid as a rock and constituted the most important bilateral relationship in the world, contributing to peace, stability, and development. For Ukraine, as far as China is concerned, the causes of the Ukraine situation were complex and had not happened overnight. According to Wang, solving complex problems requires calmness and rationality rather than adding fuel to the fire and intensifying contradictions. China has done and is doing some work to promote talks and has also long been in contact with all sides. In the complex and ever-changing world situation, China has always pursued the concept of peaceful development in the face of the Russian-Ukraine war. China has been constantly pushed by Europe and American public opinion. This comment against China deeply hurt China. The Russian-Ukrainian war was caused by the provocation of the United States, the convenience of the European Union, and the laissez-faire of the Ukrainian government. This is not the first time that an unjust war has been fought for the benefit of others at the expense of small countries, and the impact of the war has spread to the whole world. Facing the complex world situation, China is sticking to the path of peaceful development.
So, who are the guardians of peace? Who are the war criminals?
As war in Ukraine ramps up, who wants to end it? There is a little sign of any negotiation ends to this war in the immediate future. In the face of the war, it is obvious that the European Union, Russia and Ukraine have all been affected severally. In terms of economic development, the war has escalated material shortage in Europe, rising prices, even affected the food security in Africa. However, the United States not only has not been affected in any way, but has benefited a lot from the economy. The pros and cons of such interests clearly show the real behind-the-scene manipulation of war. A few weeks into the war, Russia said it was considering a Ukrainian proposal of neutrality, but there have been no negotiation since the end of March. President Putin told the UN Secretary General at the end of April, "We are negotiating. We do not reject talks." But he earlier declared negotiation at a dead end. After a meeting with the Russian leader, Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer gave a very downbeat assessment of a man who had entered into a logic of war. Peace talks have appeared to fade into background as Russia launches a new offensive. UN Security Council is powerless to help Ukraine, but it's working as designed to prevent World War III. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visits Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, where he is expected to push the Russian leaders to order a ceasefire in Ukraine. Financial Times reports recently that Putin has largely given up on peace talk. His focus now appears set on a land grab. Zelensky was also reported to be wary of talks, telling European Council President Charles Michel that Ukrainian public opinion was against them and was in favor of taking the fight to Russian forces instead. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had already accepted that Ukraine would not join NATO. It is a truth and must be recognized. But after apparent Russian atrocity came to light in Bucha, Mariupol, and elsewhere, he made it clear that there would be no more talk until Russia withdrew from all territories seized on 24th February. We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kind of things that it has done in invading Ukraine. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, Nigeria today's recommendation. The world needs to act with urgency to support countries affected by the crisis. The proposed recommendation recognizes the response will need to be faced and as such focuses first on areas for action based on existing policies and instruments that can be enacted immediately. If needed, adjustment and flexibility are introduced. This crisis will leave deep and long-lasting scars, and therefore further medium and long-term policy proposal will be needed subsequently. Call on all countries to keep engaging in multilateral fora to address urgent global food, energy, and financial issues. Delay in collective action will escalate already troubling prospects from the world economy. Call on all countries and stakeholders to recognize that the very nature of increasing common global stock is such that countries are not individually responsible and that therefore solutions must be based on global and not solely country-based risk. Make immediate and efficient use of all existing mechanisms to address both the countries directly suffering from the war, Ukraine and the neighboring countries, and also, as shown in the analysis, the global consequence of the war in developing countries. Call not only on countries but also on the private, civil society, and philanthropic sectors to help the most vulnerable populations around the world and to be proactive actors in the pursuit of coordinated solutions. Fragmented intervention will not lead to the best results. Please drop your comments, questions, suggestions, and solutions below, as we will be taking them one after the other to analyze. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Nigeria Today. I am Oyiza Avi. Thanks for watching.